every day we want to start with intention. I was working with a group at breakfast, and I was telling them how important intention is. Now, one of the mistakes people make is they come in rooms like this, and they try to conform. And you don't want to conform. This is your experience. Like, your goals are your goals. Your goals are not my goals. It's not everybody else's goals. So you want to claim your power by focusing on you. Like, I want you to pretend today it's just me and you. If it was just me and you, what questions would you ask? Where would you say, oh, that's it, instead of being like, I have a question, but I'm going to be shy, right? Like, this is your opportunity for breakthroughs. You know, one moment creates a breakthrough. One idea creates a breakthrough, but you're not going to get a breakthrough if you're worried about what Kim thinks of you. It's never going to happen. And the truth is, Kim isn't thinking of you. Kim's thinking of Kim. You know, so make today about you. That's what I want you to do. Did everyone do the work I gave them last night? Yes. Did that create a lot of clarity for you now? Okay, we need clarity because our mind needs direction. So, how many of you are ready to eliminate your elimination list? So when we write this list, it's done. From this point on, it's done. That's the attitude I want you to have. And everything in your life is a reflection of your attitude. So Jonathan, where's your best attitude? Like, what are you super confident about? You just accept right away.
Probably I would say just in the sales, when I work with the sales team, the sales world.
Okay.
I'm a very confident seller.
Okay, so right there. Now think about what you want the most right now. Fuse that attitude with the same attitude you have towards selling. So all of you have a great attitude towards something, right? All of you. You could have a great attitude as a parent. Like, you just are super confident there, right? Or you have a great attitude as a business owner, or you have a great attitude towards working out, like wherever it is, right? You want to fuse it with what you want the most. Like, I don't have a great attitude towards anything mechanical. Like, you put a hammer in my hand, not a great attitude, right? So, like, I could tell you we all are better than each other at something. But we want to leverage our attitude towards what we want the most. Like, nothing is going to change your life. Nothing is going to change your wealth more than your attitude. Like, right now, all of you have an attitude. You came in this room with a much better attitude than yesterday. Okay? And tomorrow, you're going to have even a better attitude than today. But you've got to put attention on attitude. Because attitude creates all your results. You know, Garrett, what do you want the most?
I really want to start my business off right, and then I want to hit these sales.
Okay.
Just like I should.
Okay. So if you were doing this right, you would have already accepted with the right attitude, I am starting my business on fire. These are how many sales.
Yep.
That's the attitude shift. Okay, that's the attitude shift. When I first started my business, I had no clients. I had nobody. But what I had was an expectant attitude. And like the first month, we did like 400,000. And like within the first month. Like, I just kept going to the unknown, the unknown, the unknown, right? But I didn't change my expectation because I was a new business. I didn't call myself a new business. A lot of people say, oh, I'm new in business. That's a crutch. You know, so you want to make sure you're not using it as a crutch. Whenever I work with single mothers, they say, I'm a single mother. I say, no, you're a mother. You know, I always tell them this. They're like, you're right. You know, because I don't want to have a crutch. I'm not saying they're not single mothers, but I don't want anything to be a crutch that is going to be connected to something hard, right? So that's what you guys want to make sure, because I could pick your guys' language, and I'd be like, attitude, we can improve it there, we can improve it there, we can improve it there. Why? Because attitude creates our results. And it's easy to have a great attitude when things are going well. But it's more important to have a great attitude when things are not going as well. Okay, that's when you become a professional instead of an amateur. Most people are living as amateurs and they expect A+ results. It's never going to happen. We got to be pros. We got to serve as a pro. We got to lead as a pro. We've got to sell as a pro. And when you do that, it's an invitation. It's just an invitation, right? When it's an invitation, people are going to come refer you to so many people, But when it's forced, it's not going to feel good, right? And so it's the same thing. When you guys are forcing ideas, it doesn't feel good. So you got to watch your energy, because when you have your standards drive your energy, you're going to be off to the races. Procrastination, why don't people act on ideas? I'm fearful, right? Fearful of what? They never ask the question. They never ask the question, what's the worst that can happen? The better question is, what's the best that could happen? That's a better question. But we've got to overcome our understanding of fear, because we've all grown up with this relationship towards fear. I gotta go retreat, right? That's trained at a young age. You want to have that fear and do it anyway. That's where you guys are going to make the magic, okay? And some of you yesterday weren't clear about what you want. So if you're not clear about what you want, what do you think the request you're giving to the universe? The universe is like, I have no idea. I'm just going to give them based on what they've always done. That's what happens, what they've always done. So we've got to be courageous. We were driving in this morning. So many things trigger for me whenever I'm doing events. And it triggers like, what did I do? Why did I even do it? Like, when did I have the courage to do that? But when you bet on yourself, you're always going to the unknown. I went to the unknown when we had nothing. And still to this day, I'm kind of surprised about it. Like, if you knew who I was, I'm like kind of surprised about it. Because I was very comfortable. But I had this thought, because I'd been studying this. And I'm like, if I keep doing what I've always been doing, I'm going to keep getting what I've always got. And that was a really frightening thought to me. And that's why I quit my job and I decided to bet on myself. But quitting my job wasn't where I won. That was a start. It was what I did after that. I got other job offers, and they were so enticing. And I said no. I almost said yes, because we were really living not great, okay? So it was constantly going to the unknown, and that's what you guys have to do. So you can't ever tolerate, well, I want this standard, but I keep negotiating, okay? Because you got to remember, goals are super important, standards are more important. Because goals are who we aspire to be, standards are who we are. The standards are what's going to create the goal achievement. That's what it's going to do, okay? So I want us to work on goals today, but I want you guys to really think. I want you to really think about what I'm going through. And you remember yesterday I said I want you to have the gaps, right? So I hope you guys have been doing that, okay? I hope you've been doing that, because we want to turn the gaps into a plan of attack. That's what we want to do. Now, I don't want you just to have any goals. I want you to have goals that are worthy of you. Like, I want you to go after what you want more than anything else in the world. Not just what you think you could do. Like, Jason, I don't love your goal. You know why? I think you're so much bigger than that. I think if you set a bigger target, you're going to pay the house in full anyway. Like, I know you want to pay the house in full. Like, but if you're earning enough money, you're always going to pay that house in full. Do you know what I mean? Like, does that goal scare you?
No, it feels attainable.
Yeah, that's what I don't want. I don't want any of you to have that goal. You remember yesterday we were talking about stretching? Until we stretch, there's no passion. There's no growth. Because Jason could get to that goal grinding. He can. He's really good at what he does. I already know, because I've known him. But I'll tell you, when you guys, I don't want you to set goals that you think you can achieve. I want you to go after what you want the most. But here's the power of that. When you go after what you want more than anything else, you don't know how in the hell you're going to do it. Here's the power. You develop self-respect. You develop so much self-respect on an unconscious level. You're valuing yourself. And because I promise you, to do those, you're going to have to be on the extra mile. And there's very few people on that extra mile. That's why I want you to surrender to the processes and get so emotionally involved and trust the training. If you trust what you're doing every day, it's going to happen by default. So when you look at a quantum leap, because I want you to have your first quantum leap by April 1st, okay? You have to be hyper-focused and hyper-intentional. What does that mean? When we're focused, we're using our higher faculty of our will, okay? So when you're using your will, you lock in on one idea with the distraction of any other idea. Okay, now you guys have talked to me individually here. I get distracted here, I'm getting distracted here. I understand that. But going from good to great is about focus. And if you want to create freedom, you're going to have to develop focus. So we don't say, like Garrett said, I'm just starting my business. No, that's the wrong language, okay? Now, I keep telling him because he never does it again, right? But it's got to be like, I'm going to crush it in my business. I don't need the safety net. We got to eliminate the safety net. We think it feels good to give ourselves an out, but it blocks us from who we want to be, okay? Then we've got to be intentional. What is intention? I already know the outcome before I even start. That's intention. I already know the outcome before I start. Now, how I built intention, I had to remind myself. So I was being intentional every hour of my day. Now, it was super monotonous. I promise you it was. But it changed the game. I have a client, Michael Minoka. I had him do this 6 months ago. I had him put an alarm on his phone every hour that just said intention. And I said, this is going to drive you crazy, but trust me. It changed his sales dramatically. You know, because I could ask you guys to be intentional, but doesn't mean you're going to remember to be intentional. Okay, because remember, 95% of our day is run by a program. So if we're not intentional, we can't change the program. So we've got to be intentional about doing it now. We've got to be intentional about accepting and rejecting. We've got to be intentional about hitting our daily goals. So that's why we have to be hyper-focused and hyper-intentional. Now, you've got to make this a habit that you study an hour a day. You can't miss a day of studying. That's what's going to increase your awareness. And then as you increase your awareness, you're going to automatically do things you never did before. Like that has to become a habit. That's been a habit for me for 21 years. And I was a C student. So if you look, I wasn't like the most studious person. So I'm telling you, if I can do it, anyone can do it. Now I'm one of the best students. I don't know a better student than me. I'm sure there is. I don't know. Like I study a certain way. I study until it's part of me. And if it's not a part of me, I don't move on. I don't move on from it. I could take a line and I'll study it so much. I'll study it over and over again until it's like super ingrained in me, that I understand it at the deepest level, so I operate. So it's not studying 1,000 things. It's studying yourself. I study how do I operate. How did I operate today? That's why I was saying yesterday, I always look for evidence. Like what evidence this morning showed me I was intentional? Okay? I already have it in my mind. I already know what I did, you know? I already know what I did in the cold plunge this morning. You know, like I already know what I was programming myself. So everything I'm telling you guys to do, I do. You guys would know if I didn't do it. You know, so I'm doing it all the time. Like whenever I travel, I bring a book with me wherever we go. Wherever we go. And why? Because I love books. You know, I am obsessed with books. I've read, I don't even know how many books now. Like we probably have 700 books in my office. You know, like I am always studying. It's not like I study all 700 books. I'll study parts of it to make it a part of me. That's what's gonna be the great differentiator for you. Studying you. Okay? And then you've got to really work with deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is, we were talking about your skill set gap. Now, deliberate practice is working on that skill over and over and over again until you can't do it. That's what deliberate practice is. Most people don't do that. They'll go from one skill to the next because their mind gets bored. Because your mind is like, let me do more. I got to do more, but less is more. When you do a few things compounded over time, that's how you're going to win. That's what I've done with my skill sets. You got to practice it. You got to get the reps in over and over and over again. And then, like something that I want you guys to automatically do, how can I keep increasing my service? How can I keep getting better at my value? You know, how can I do it? How can I keep adding to what I'm doing? And when you do that, it's going to change the game. It's going to change the game. I have a program that I do called Legacy Builders. And I was like, I'm going to add to that program. Because I was like, starting next year, I'm adding daily and weekly accountability that's built into that community. You know, so because everybody has blind spots, right? And what do people need the most is accountability. So I'm always thinking like, how can I make it better? How can I continue to make it better? You know, that's what I want you to think. How can I make it better? How can I make my service better? By making you better. Then you're going to get bigger ideas, right? So, and always attack what you need to work on. Don't say I need to work on this and not do it. You got to do it right away. You remember what I said yesterday with an idea. When I'm looking at what I need to work on, I got to attack it right away. I got to start doing it right away. That's what's going to change. Okay? Now, going for a quantum leap means you guys got to eliminate some existing clients. Carlos did that yesterday. You got to eliminate roles that you've outgrown. If you need to hire more people, right? You've got to eliminate obsolete behaviors and mindsets. Like, what doesn't serve you anymore? What doesn't serve you? You know, like, Carlos, you told me a couple years ago, I'm never going to have a team. I'm never going to have a team. You and Kim actually told me the same thing. And you guys told me the same exact reasons why you're not going to have a team, right? And now, what are you building? Yeah. Yeah. And look how great your awareness has changed, so now you're open to more ideas, right? I never forced it on him. I just kept dropping it in on him, just dropping little nuggets, because I knew how important that is, you know, for where he wants to go. So the beautiful thing is you never force somebody. You allow them to be ready for it. Because if I forced him, he wouldn't have done it, you know. So you don't force anything. When you get neutral, you're never going to force, you're going to trust. And that's where the magic happens. But when we're talking about goals, we have to master the 80-20 rule. We have to master this. The 80-20 rule says if we doubled our time on our top 20% of activities, we could work a 2-day work week and achieve 60% more. So what are you guys thinking? What are you thinking? Are you like buying this? I didn't write this. Okay. Okay. I promise you I didn't write this. This is from Robert Koch. And I will tell you this. You guys should not be spending any time on anything that's not your top 20% of activities. If you're doing that, you're grinding. If you're doing that, you're attached. You know, and this is like literally identity. This slide is identity. Because that's where the work is. Like, I'm willing to let go of things that don't move the needle. There's a lot of things that you guys are doing that don't move the needle, but you're doing it because it's a habit, right? But the beautiful thing is if you give it to other people, let's say you need to do it, Stacy. There's things you need to do. But you give it to somebody else, that becomes their quantum leap. That becomes their badge of honor. You know, and that's what we want to get really good at. So how you guys are going to do more in less time is use your days working only on your top 20% of activities. Some of your top 20% of activities is preparation, like preparing your presentations. It is creating your skill set. So that's all I want you to do in your workday. Now, we've got to make our goals so big you believe it's impossible. Every goal I have, I don't know how I'm going to do it. So in the beginning, it's impossible. Then I start playing with the idea. And I use a calculator and I start playing with numbers, kind of like I did with you guys yesterday. Well, if I start playing with numbers and make the numbers ridiculous, then it's nothing, right? It's nothing. the numbers you start accepting it. I have a client in Europe, Ute. When I told her I want to help her 10x her income, she said, "You're crazy." She wouldn't accept it. I said, "Let's just play with it." So for a couple months, we were just I said, "Don't do it, don't not do it, just let's play with it and see if I can get you to buy in." Well, last week she told me, in 23 years of business, she did it, and it was the best month she's ever had in her whole business. And we went back 2 years prior where it was impossible for her. Okay, so what you guys think are impossible, it's not. It's just your attitude to what's possible. So 2xing your goal, there's so many ways you could do it. It's just grinding. It's just grinding. Okay, do you want to grind? Or do you want to create systems that make it effortless? See, we got to create systems. Okay? There's a lot that you guys are doing well right now. Like if you look, there's a lot you're doing well. Then you're like, how can I look at what I do the best and then deconstruct it so I do it all the time? That's called a system. But you guys are, what you do best right now, it's unconscious. But when you make it conscious, now you could teach it to other people as you grow. And when you teach it to other people, then we have 5 different Anns. We have 5 different Garretts, right? In the beginning, they're not going to be as good as you, but hopefully they're better than you. Like, I want everyone to be better than me. So I teach everything I do. I don't hold it back because I'm like, I want everyone to win. Like, as Ann wins, I win. It's just a ripple effect. So 10xing your goal, there's a limited number of strategies. Now, if you don't want a 10x, don't go for a 10x. Okay, go for what you're most committed to. Because you could say I'm at a 10x and have no commitment, there's no power there. Okay? Go for what you guys want the most, not what I'm saying. I'm just telling you what's possible. So I've got to get you guys to think bigger. Every single one of you is not thinking big enough. And if I say that, do you agree with that or do you disagree? Okay? Why do I say that? Because there's no limit to where we can go. I didn't say you guys don't have good goals. But think of the thoughts you're accepting that are reckless. That would prove my point. Okay? That would prove my point. We've got to eliminate the reckless thinking. Getting bothered by other people. Letting lack and limitation run our life. Letting resentment run our life. Letting our past mistakes run our life. So, the process I'm going to show you is designed to get you to think bigger automatically. Okay? But to think bigger, you got to speak bigger. David Schwartz in The Magic of Thinking Big, he said, we're either speaking our funeral into existence or we're speaking castles into existence. And I love that quote. So we've got to bulletproof our language. I want you to compete. I told you yesterday, I want you to be ultra competitive. But I want you to compete against yesterday. I want you to compete against your potential. I want you to show yourselves what you're capable of. When you do that, you're not forcing anything. You're creating evidence that proves who you can be. And so, like I think of you, Garrett, when we were at World Class Wealth, we set a goal, and it was an aggressive goal.
Correct.
It was 50 sales by the end of the year.
Correct.
Okay, how many of you did you do?
52 by Thanksgiving.
52 by Thanksgiving. Yeah. We were in the room, and I'm like, I got to change your goal, because I gave him another goal that he already hit. So I'm like, we're gonna make it a lot bigger. Well, you put a carrot in front of this guy, it's done, right? It's done. And so all I did was get him to stretch. And he would be sending me text messages, I'm at 20, I'm at 22. And I'd be like, great, but I never made it a big deal. I never made it a big deal because I didn't want it to be big in his mind. I'm like, keep going, keep going, keep going. 52 by Thanksgiving. So think about what he thinks is possible now. What does he think is possible? So we've got to reframe our perception of big. What's big to me may be small to Ann. Okay? So you want to understand and stop measuring your goals against your past. Your past is not where you set goals, and that's what most people do. I'm going to do 5% better. I'm going to do 10% better. No, you set goals only on one basis. how do I really want to live? Like, that's what you guys should be thinking. How do I really want to live? So when you start connecting it to how you really want to live, that's how you're going to change your life. That's how your why is going to drive you, not your why not. Most people are driven by why they can't do something. So every goal that I've achieved effortlessly, now I've achieved others through grind, okay? But a few months ago I realized this, every goal that I ever achieved effortlessly has been connected to changing my life. And every time I connected it to changing my life, my habits became automatic. My habits became automatic. You know, always automatic. And I will tell you, most people are connecting goals to getting. Goals are not about getting, they're about becoming. So if you connect your goal to changing your life, I promise you, you're going to be very detached and you're just going to go to work every day. So, go ahead.
So then when you changed a goal, you up-leveled, you had to look at yourself and think, okay, what do I need to change about my day-to-day routine and my thought about myself and where I'm going, right? Because you couldn't just look at your goal. You had to create that structure.
Yeah.
New standards.
Well, how I did it early on, and how I still do it, is I find my hidden patterns. What am I currently doing that's not in harmony with my goal? Like, one of them was starting and stopping for me. Another one was conforming. Another one was needing approval. Like, nobody taught me how to do this. This is like in the infancy when I started getting mentored by my mentor. He never said that. But I knew I can't get to where I want to go being this person, right? I can't get to my goals shrinking, for example. So still today, I'm like, for my next level, what do I need to eliminate? Like, what habits no longer serve where I want to go? So that's how I look at it before I ever build standards. So I got to look at who I'm not going to be anymore first. So I always answer who I'm not going to be before I answer who I'm going to be. Okay? So that's what I'm looking at all the time. And then after I answer those questions, who am I not going to be and who am I going to be, then I build my standard. Okay, that's what I look at. So it's a really good question. Now, your mind is always going to go to what you're most committed to unconsciously. But when you consciously are committed, your unconscious is going to take you places you've never gone. Ever. You've never gone before. You know, when you accept it as a fact, it just is. See, most people are attached to the goal, right? They're attached to the outcome. If I'm ever attached to an outcome, I'm going backwards. You know, the goal is already here. Your goal is already here. Now, you got to get on the frequency, but you have to be neutral. You have to trust it. You remember yesterday I said, everybody has wants, not everybody trusts their wants. Everyone has ideas, not everyone trusts their ideas. Okay? And that's why the follow-through right away. Like if I'm working with a client and we agree on something, I get them to act right away. Why do I get them to act right away? They change their identity the moment they follow through, not just said something. So I always say I don't listen to what people say, I listen to what they do. See, you could tell me something and not do it, and you have every good intention to do it, right? But then you create a habit, and no matter what business you're in, that's what I did with Stacy. I'm like, oh, right away, help them through it, right? Like, why would you not help them through it? So you're protecting them against themselves. You guys have to get in a habit of understanding who you are and protect you against your negative behaviors, right? Like Jason, I don't want him to work on the weekend. Like if he said, I love working on the weekend, I really want to do it, then I'd let him work on the weekend. But that's not what he said, right? So we've got to train our mind to think bigger. How do we do it? It's with accepting ideas, a bigger idea, and we do that with our imagination. Everything starts in your imagination. So let's say Carlos accepted a negative idea. His imagination just dumped it in his subconscious mind automatically. That's why it's imperative that you build the skill set of accepting and rejecting ideas. Now, you want to always look from what's good. What's good? So you always create from wholeness. What does that mean? I'm always coming from gratitude. See, gratitude is the start of achievement, but gratitude, most people don't understand it. I've been told to have a gratitude practice, right? But when you understand gratitude is the vibration of abundance, and gratitude is what creates the new us, then you're going to be very disciplined with your gratitude. See, when I first started doing gratitude, I was told to do gratitude. And I'd be writing it down. I'd write 10 things I'm grateful for. And I'm like, this is just mechanical. There was no connection, right? Then I connected it to studying gratitude deeper so I understood it. Then I started being like, why am I grateful for this? Changed the whole game. But I want you to remember, gratitude is what creates the new you. So burn that idea in your mind. And gratitude is not the end of achievement, it's the start of achievement. So you want to develop the habit of spending 10 to 20 minutes a day on visualizing. 10 to 20 minutes. You're visualizing all day long anyway. Most people are visualizing what they don't want, right? Your imagination is going all day long, whether you know it or not. Like right now, you guys are listening to me through your imagination. Right now you are. Okay, I've got you guys neutral. It's just dumping in your imagination. And so we've got to audit your surroundings. What and who influences your thinking? Like, are you around a circle that negotiates? Then you're going to negotiate. Are you around a circle that's unhealthy? Then you're going to be unhealthy. Are you around a circle that is going after big things? Then you're going to go after big things. So you've got to audit your circle. Now, observe your thoughts. Your quiet thoughts are the real you. So every time you have a quiet, limiting thought, I want you, from this moment forward, to say, that was my old self. This is where I'm going. Every time you do that, you stop the thought, and you're rewiring your programming. Don't fight it, though. If you fight it, you're giving the program more power. The program doesn't need more power. It's powerful enough, okay? It is powerful enough. And we want to identify what is your hidden commitments. I was talking to somebody yesterday, and I was like, oh, I picked up the hidden commitment right away. Right away. Some people's hidden commitments, I said it yesterday, could be their family. But we can't get to the future we want with our hidden commitments. Some people's hidden commitments are drugs and alcohol. Some people's hidden commitments are excuses. Some people's hidden commitments, they don't even try. Some people's hidden commitments are hiding, shrinking. But they keep doing it because they never expose it. So when we expose it, we can do something about it. So, and thinking bigger isn't enough. Like, you can think as big as you want, but take no action. So you've got to act. Acting is the foundation of creating results. Action is the most important thing we do every day. Every day. And I already told you this. When you write on paper, you're creating an image in your mind. Until you write it on paper, you're not committed to the image. But you write it down every day. You write your future letter or future truth every day. You're creating an image. And the repetition of creating that image is going deep, and eventually it's going to change your programming. So don't wait for success. Live as you're already successful. I want you to live like you're the best in the world right now. And that's not ego. That's what creates certainty. You are the best in the world. You know how Jonathan was like, I'm very confident in selling. So I don't need to work on his mindset around selling. I need to work on his mechanics with his team to get them to have the same mindset that Jonathan does, right? So we've got to eliminate doubt. Doubt kills more dreams than anything else. Why do you think you guys have fear? Kim was saying, sometimes I procrastinate because of fear. She wasn't right. She procrastinates because she let the doubt turn into fear. The doubt is the enemy, and then it manifests itself into fear. So doubt starts on our conscious mind. Fear is on a subconscious level. So if we don't get rid of the doubt and start doubting our doubts, then it's going to turn into fear, okay? So your desire, what you guys want, is chasing you as fast as you want it. But you got to stop digging up the seeds. Where is it? Why isn't it happening? Every time you do it, you're starting over. Every time you're doing it, you're starting over. I always use the example, if we went out to dinner and we ordered a steak, we wouldn't order a steak and say, where is it? Why isn't it here yet? You know it's coming. Well, that's the same thing we have to do for our goals. So we have to trust it. Everything is working behind the scenes. The universe never has a delay. You guys got to get this. Your goals are not here yet, either because you're not consistent or you're not prepared for it. That's the only reason the goal is not here. So you're blocking it in some way. You remember yesterday I said, I want you to observe what you're tolerating because those create subconscious blocks. So that's why people work so hard and barely get by. It's not because they're not trying, it's because they're not thinking in the right way. And so, but you've got to just take your year and break it up into 90 days. Break it up into 90 days. Because if I can get Bob to create the biggest transformation by April 1st, guess what? He's going to have so much momentum by July. He's going to have 2 quantum leaps. You know, that's why I go break everything up. I think it is impossible not to create a quantum leap every 90 days. That's part of my paradigm. Okay, now everybody's isn't like that. You know, everyone's isn't like that. I talked to Bob this morning. I'm like, the plan I have for you, there's no frickin' way you don't have the best year of your life. There's no way. It's impossible. Yeah, most people get in their way. They won't do whatever it takes. And remember this, your goal is going to demand whatever it takes. And I don't know what that means, but you're going to know on the process. But if you're saying, here are my spiritual contracts, I'm only willing to do this. I had a client in my All-in 90 program. Before we started, I did this pre-call. And he goes, well, I don't want to do this, this, and this. And I said, well, you're never going to get to your goals. And he started laughing. And he said, oh my God, I didn't even realize that. He had a spiritual contract of being all out. You know, then he's wondering why he doesn't get to his goals. Well, that's why. I don't demand what I do. My goals demand what I have to do. My standards demand what I have to do. But my goal determines my standards. So when you make the goal impossible, you stop working from your present self. You stop working from your past self. You'll be open to new ideas and paths to getting to your big goal. Okay? Like, none of you should know what the path is to get to your big goal, or else your goal isn't big enough yet. I promise you. Now, think about this. If you want to grow your profits by 10 times, how would you do it? This is an exercise that I've given so many people to do in their morning routine. Okay, like a lot of you have heard me give this, yes? Okay, how many of you have done it? Okay, every day. Okay, so you haven't done it, okay? So you have to do it every day. I have one client who actually did it every day for 90 days. And he said, by doing that, I created an extra 800,000. But you know what most people do? They don't get the idea, they don't see it, so they stop doing it. You got to do it every day, every day. And this isn't long. This is like 10 minutes. You write out on a piece of paper, if I was going to grow my profits by 10 times, how would I do it? And most of the ideas are going to suck, so you just let those go. But if you do it every day, every day, every day, you're going to get ideas, and then your job is to act on them. Okay? Now, I encourage everyone to do this these next 90 days. But Blake, you know how you said, I did it, and then you're like, every day, and then you're like, no? Okay? Right. You want to remember this. It's what we do every day that counts. It's not what we do once in a while. It's what we do every day. Okay? Now, the only way to make the present better is having a big future. So every decision should be about your future, not your present. Yet most people have it backwards. They make every decision based on their present, not their future. So what do they keep creating? More of what they've always gotten. That's why people live the same year for 50 years. It's the same year over and over again. They call it a life. They call it a life. And so you have to make every decision from your future. if your future would say yes to this, you say yes. If your future would say no, you say no. Right now, most people are saying yes to what they should be saying no to and saying no to what they should be saying yes to. Now, every day, you're going to decide, one day I'm going to do it or day one. Every day has to be day one. If you want to win big. If you want to achieve big goals, every day is day one. You guys can all put great focus for one day. Would you agree? So keep doing that. Just for today, this is what I'm going to do. Just for today, I'm taking my 3 goal achieving activities. Just for today, I'm going to make sure I don't go to sleep until I get my 3 wins. Just for today, I'm committed to my daily goal. You know, if you do that, you're going to start stacking, and you're going to win big. Okay? But we've got to start understanding what is killing your goals. There's only one thing that's killing your goals, and it's how you think. It's how you think. See, every day, every moment, we have 80,000 thoughts coming in. And we're either accepting the positive side of our personality or the negative on every single one. Now, when you have a goal, so the only thing you should be accepting is what you want. So let's say Kim started accepting 60,000 of those 80,000 is what she wants. But she does that every day. She's disciplining her mind, and I promise you she's going to win big. But let's say Yasir is like, I forgot about accepting and rejecting, right? And he's accepting 30,000 of what he wants, 50,000 of what he doesn't want. What do you think he's going to get? Okay? So you have a goal, but our job is to get the goal on a subconscious level. Until it's on the subconscious mind, it's not there. It is not there. Okay? Now, right now, your guys' goals is on the conscious level. How do I know that? Because you haven't received it yet. Once it's on the subconscious, you know because I've received it. You're going to receive it once you get it as a subconscious part of your personality. So, why do we accept negative ideas? Because old conditioning. Because the world is disciplining you. Your past is disciplining you. You're not disciplining your thinking. And then what does it turn into? Fear. But most people don't understand fear. I know you all do now, but most people don't. So even if fear is on a subconscious level, you go, I got to do it anyway. I got to do it anyway. But the old conditioning is going to say retreat, blame, rationalize, negotiate with yourself. Okay? So if you're doing that, you got to watch this so you understand why you're doing it. You got to say, oh, my old conditioning. Today, I don't even know where I was. It was like my old self was driving the bus, right? So we don't want to repeat mistakes 2 days in a row. This isn't about perfection. It's about consistency. But if you guys can understand why you're doing something, you can change it. So then what happens, it puts you in a negative vibration. So it puts you in a negative mental attitude. So if you're in a negative mental attitude, what are you going to attract? What you don't want, right? But what we have to understand, what triggers fear? I've already given you this answer. Doubt. Doubt. So we have got to be in control. Because why would we doubt something? Because we're letting evidence. So we have to make, how do we get rid of doubt? We make a definite decision. Every day is day one. This is what I'm doing. Like how you guys think about breathing. I was telling Ann this. I go, you don't try to breathe, you just breathe. So you don't try to create success. It's just who you are. That's why you don't chase. But because people don't make a definite decision, they're separate from what they want. But that's how you're going to crush doubt. You're going to say, I doubted in the past, but not anymore. This is what I'm doing. And when you make a definite decision, now you're operating with new conditioning. Now you're connected to your future and your goal. And then the repetition of doing it over and over and over again creates the new program. Now you're in a positive vibration, and now you create the results you want. So you've got to master your thinking. You know, Jonathan, you know how your partner was like, hey, I'm calling you out. We haven't studied in 2 weeks. That was a really good thing because what tells me is he was thinking. He was thinking the right way. You know, accountability is a success insurance policy. But if I could get Jonathan never to negotiate with his study, his program's going to change so fast. Like a lot of people say programs take forever to change. I don't buy that. I think they change when you behave and do things every day. And you guys could create mini quantum leaps every 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks you can. So, but we talked about this yesterday. And that's why I said nothing works if you guys don't understand the programming lesson. When programs stay in control, nothing's going to change. Nothing's going to change. Go ahead.
I'm sorry if I'm getting ahead of where you're going, but at breakfast I overheard you saying at the other table about the analytical mind and how it relates to the conscious and the subconscious. Do you mind doing a little bit more explanation of that?
Yeah, sure.
For later.
So if we go back. Okay, so let's say you're doing the repetition, but you're forcing it. There's your conscious mind, where I have gatekeepers, your analytical mind. And then there's your subconscious mind. So how do we neutralize the analytical mind? There's only 2 ways to do it. Is emotion, getting emotionally involved in an idea, or where we're out in space, where we're in this trance, when we're in that alpha state. That's how you get the gatekeeper out, your analytical mind. Now, for 3 years, why was I struggling? Because I never got to the subconscious. Why? Because I was doing it mechanically. I was doing it, it was like when I first started meditating, it was like, am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? I was like constantly. And when I first started visualizing, I'm like, did I go deep enough? Like I was questioning it, right? So I never got to the subconscious. But when you neutralize the analytical mind, that's what selling is. That's what I'm doing with you guys right now. I'm neutralizing your analytical mind. You're wide open. Like when you guys are getting marketed, they know this. They know how the subconscious works, so they're using hypnotic marketing to neutralize your analytical mind. So what we have to do, when you get in a really relaxed state, you get the analytical mind out of the way. When you are so fired up, so passionate, so emotional, you get it out of the way. And you don't have to shout to be emotionally involved. You know when you fall in love with this idea? You just get so emotionally involved. Like the idea is a love story. That's when you know the analytical mind's out of the way. So if you're not in love with the idea, you're not getting to the subconscious. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. So, but it's not like sometimes you'll fall in love with an idea right away. Sometimes you'll fall in love with it right away. Sometimes it's the repetition that gets you to fall in the idea, right? So how do you change a program is repetition or an emotional impact. I like using both, but most people are using an emotional impact the wrong way. They have something they don't want, right? And they're like, God, I'm going to protect myself from doing it again. Like you invest in something that didn't work one time, so you're like, I'm never investing again. That would be a negative way. 9/11, emotional impact. When I lost my parents, those were emotional impacts, right? When my kids were born, emotional impact, in a good way. So you can have both of them. Like I've shared a lot of stories with you over the last day of a lot of emotional impacts that were positive for me. Like I'd get kicked in the face by my mentor and then I changed, right? Like those were good emotional impacts. But so you got to really always be in a relaxed state. Why do you think I said to you guys yesterday, stop being so uptight? Why? Because all of your analytical minds were in the way. All of them. I was just looking at the room. That's what happens. So that's where the analytical mind is. Okay? But another way to do it is when you're visualizing, just stare out into space. When you're daydreaming, like you're like, oh my God, I don't even know, or you're with somebody and they're totally in a trance. Well, their analytical mind's out of the way, okay?
Is this why driving and listening at the same time can be so effective?
Yeah, because you're in deductive reasoning. So when you're doing 2 things, or walking and listening, you're in deductive reasoning. When you're in deductive reasoning, you're wide open, okay? When you're in inductive reasoning, it's the opposite. Your analytical mind's in the way. When I do this, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, then this is going to happen, right? Like I had to get Carlos away from that because that was Carlos's a few years ago when I first met him, that was his mentality, you know. Now he's not like that. So some of you guys, I was at breakfast, I go, like, I already know who's mechanical in this room, you know. So we've got to work on shifting that, or else it's going to take a lot longer to get to where you want to go. So now, when you stop disciplining your thinking, so when you're letting the results think for you, when you're making decisions from the past, it impacts everything in your life. It impacts the type of actions you take. It impacts whether you shrink or whether you rise. It impacts your results, and it impacts your philosophy and identity. Okay? It's impacting everything. Our greatest responsibility, and I can't say this enough so you guys prioritize it, is how we think. It is our greatest responsibility. It's how we think. No one can get us to think a certain thing. You have to decide, I'm going to change my life, then you're going to upgrade your thinking. You're going to upgrade your thinking. So in order to become what you want, you must overcome the old you. This is why you got to get to know what your hidden patterns are. What are my hidden patterns? So if you know what they are, then you can decide never to be them again. But if you don't know what they are, you're going to always unconsciously be them, because our subconscious always demonstrates the dominant of two ideas. Okay? So, but here's the side effect. A shit ton of discomfort. When you're uncomfortable, it is the best thing for you. Allow it to take its course. Do not retreat. The minute you retreated, you lost. So here's where we get ultra competitive. When I'm uncomfortable in my central nervous system, I'm going to feel it. But I'm going to continue moving forward. Because you have to overcome the old you. You have to change it. You have to enforce the standard. When you are feeling discomfort and do it anyway, you just change your standard. You just changed it completely. Now, all it is being better 1%. If you get better 1% every day for 90 days, you're going to 37x being better with compounding interest. But why don't people, you've heard 1% forever, why don't people do it? Because today they're 1% here, tomorrow they're 1% there, then the next day. They never do the repetition of one thing of getting 1% better. So if your thinking is too small right now, if you're letting the outside control you right now, your 1% should be in thinking. I'm going to think 1% better every day. Define what your 1% is. If you want to improve your sales, make 1% about selling. So you're so locked in on getting better at selling. You know, so whatever your goal demands defines that 1%. Okay? So if you guys look at your gaps and look at your goal, I'd be like, okay, out of all my gaps, what is going to create the greatest lift? That would be your 1%. That would be your 1%. Okay? And don't leave here without identifying what that is. So when you intentionally discipline your thinking, you're going to automatically think and act like that person. You're going to be like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not doing it. You know, eventually, you guys are going to be super desensitized to negativity. You're going to hate lack and limitation. Like, you're going to loathe it. It's not like one day I woke up, I'm like, oh God, I hate lack and limitation. It was like my awareness changed. So when you're not used to being around it, then you're around it, you're like, oh my God. A few years ago, we had this family friend that stayed with us, right? I couldn't wait to get her the hell out of my house. I mean, I could not wait. I will tell you this. Like, I hadn't seen her for many years. Her daughter was coming to look at schools. I mean, my wife and I were going to sleep at 7. Like, I just couldn't wait to get out of the room. And I haven't talked to her since. I haven't seen her since. I was like, I'm done. You know, like, it was a terrible experience. You know, so what I'm telling you is, she's always been like that. I'm the one who changed. So the conversations were always like that. You know, I just couldn't stand it. So when I tell you, as you grow your awareness, you guys are going to be very impatient with people with lack and limitation. I promise you. But what actions am I not taking due to discomfort? Just look at the last 30 days. Like, what opportunities did you have? And you're like, oh my gosh, I know I should do it, but I'm not doing it. This will cause us to understand what our hidden commitments are. There's a reason for that, right? There's a reason. Now, if you start asking yourself every day, I had this opportunity, but I didn't do it. Why didn't I do it? It's going to give you a lot of awareness. And then you're going to start doing it. Now, you have to take inspired action. Inspired action, as you change your program, there's going to be different actions, different opportunities that come your way, and your job is to act on them. Your job isn't to force. I never know what action I'm going to take every day. I have a plan, but then I'll get a better idea, and I act on it right away. That's called inspired action. But you want to take action with swagger. You want to take action with certainty. You want to take action with your standard. And that's how you're going to build confidence. Like, you already do it. When you're taking inspired action with swagger, the outcome's already done. You watch how fast things are going to start coming to you. But this is what the mechanical people don't do. Well, I'm going to wait till I'm ready. I'm going to wait. Oh, it's the end of the year. It's the end of the year. You know, the best month to sell anything is December. Why? Because people are always buying gifts. They're already in that buying state that I was talking about yesterday, right? Yet people are like, oh, December, I'm going to coast. It is such a competitive opportunity. You know, like, because most people are coasting, where the people with the right mindset understand that, right? But I think the best time to sell is every day. That's my attitude. Like, every day you can help somebody. So why wouldn't you sell them every day? You know, I've done sales. My wife is my witness to this. We were at Disneyland, and I was on a roller coaster and made a sale. Yeah. When the opportunity presents itself, that's your opportunity. You know? See, we got to stop negotiating. When the opportunity presents itself, you act. Okay, we never know, but when the opportunity is there, our job is to act. That's what I mean by inspired action. Okay? The second you guys procrastinate, the second you go, when I go home, then I'm going to do this, you lost the opportunity. You lost the opportunity. Because you know what it is? It's a phone call. It's a phone call. That's all it is. Let's say I told Yasir something, and he's like, well, I want to go home and talk to my wife. I go call your wife right now. You know, go call her right now. That's the opportunity. That's how you change your identity right away. So what I'm encouraging you to do is stop waiting. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. There's never a perfect moment. Now, we've got to make discipline an action. You've got to discipline all your actions. Like, I'm a person who takes massive action. Now, massive action are the little actions that create the big results. It's always the micro that creates the macro. Always. You know, I'll have people create wins journals, right? And they'll be like, well, this is hard for me because I didn't have a big win. I'm like, no one said big or small. A win is a win. Okay? I'm just getting them. If you start focusing on where you're winning, you're going to create more winning. It creates more confidence because most people don't measure their wins, they measure their losses. So if you're having an identity problem, I'm telling you, create a wins journal. If you're holding back, create a wins journal. And I want your standard to be, when you leave here, I cannot afford to hold back. It's costing you so many opportunities. It's costing you a lot of money. It's costing you a lot of impact. Now, when we look, if time passes before awareness and action, that's procrastination. So look, this is a hard rule. You have like 1 to 2 seconds when you get a thought and then act. If you lose that moment, procrastination won. And then procrastination becomes our identity. So, but in order to do this, we've got to build emotional discipline. You want to control your emotions, or your emotions are going to control you. So the emotional discipline is when you're neutral. Interesting. That's interesting. Like, Anne got a text, and my attitude and hers were very different yesterday, you know? And it's like right away is our opportunity when we get something we don't want to bulletproof it in our favor. Every day you guys got to get in the habit of bulletproofing everything in your favor. Let's say Garrett gets a deal. He has this big deal, and then it flops, right? Be like, his attitude should be, everything I lose, I get 10 times that back because I let it go right away. Like, we got to get really good with that attitude. But being neutral is being out of body. It's like third person. Like we're watching ourselves third person. So you're not positive or negative. You're not biased. You're right in the middle. So you see the truth. Neutrality is where our greatest power is. Like, we're just neutral. It just is what it is. That's when we become flexible with ourselves. You know, that's where we become flexible. Like last night I came home. I haven't done it yet, but I'm like, I created a new slide deck for you guys because I think this room needs it. It wasn't even in my plan for this event. But because I'm neutral, I'm flexible, and you guys are going to get the benefit of it. You know, you're going to get the benefit. You know, so the only way you guys are going to avoid procrastination is by doing it now. That's the only way. But if you keep procrastinating, you're going to keep operating with that hidden commitment, and you might do a little better, but you're not going to create massive change. Okay? So you've got to brain tattoo this. This is just who you are now. This is just who I am. I do it right away. Now, how did I do it right away? Because I decided I was going to do it right away. I was so inspirationally dissatisfied that I was like, from now on, everything I'm going to do right away. And it changed my life. Like, if you guys just do this, it's going to change your life. But then, as you're leading people, they're going to watch you do it, so they're going to do it. That's what they're going to do. Now, you are going to see immediate results by acting on your ideas because the universe loves to reward us. It loves to reward us. The great part is when you start winning, it feels so much better than losing. And you're going to start doing this all the time. Like I've been doing it for 19 years. You know, so I promise you, if you make it a habit, I'm going to make a phone call. You get an opportunity, I'm going to say yes or no. Even saying no is doing it now. Okay? I'm not saying, like, I don't say yes to every opportunity. You know, I do not. So I will tell you, but if you will start doing it within a millisecond, you're going to bulletproof yourself to the top 1%. Now, I want you to look at your goal. What is your relationship with your goal? I want you to think about that question. Like, I'm in love with it. It's going to be hard. I hope this year will be different than last. Like, right away, like, don't overthink this. What is your automatic relationship with your goal? That'll tell you your automatic attitude towards your goal. That'll tell you right away. Like, I want you to think right away, do I accept it? Do I accept it? Okay? So, if I don't accept it right away, I'm separate from my goal. If my goal is not a love story, I'm not fused with it yet. So I got to do more repetition. I don't know why I want it, right? Your why will always make your goal so much easier to accept. Like, that's why I say I do it to changing my life, right? I do it to changing my life. You know, so why? Do you talk to your spouse about your goals? You know, do you talk to your spouse about your vision? You know, this is very important. You know, you want to bring your spouse up too. You know, by you doing it, you're going to bring your spouse up. So let's put my wife on the hook. Her goal is to get us to 1 million subscribers on YouTube. And like, I do everything I can to support her with it. That's not my goal, that's her goal, right? When are you going to hit that? What's your first goal? 100K. See, I think of the big goal, the million, right? And so, like, that's just where my mind goes. Okay, when are we going to do 100K? Okay, see, she hasn't accepted it yet. Do you see that? Did you see that hesitation? She has it intellectually, but she doesn't have it emotionally. So then I'm going to help her with that. Okay, so how does she get it emotionally? She's got to do more repetition of owning it, right? So it's very common. Like, I'm not knocking it. It's very common when you have a big goal to start wavering, right? And this is what demands unwavering faith. So it's just more repetition of her telling herself, looking in the mirror and being like, by April 1st, we're going to have 100,000 subscribers. Like, that's not my goal, that's her goal, right? So if I understand a thing that I want intellectually, but I hesitate emotionally, I'm not fused with it. So you don't beat yourself up. You're like, oh, that's interesting, right? So then it's just more repetition. Like, I never want you guys to beat yourself up, ever. Like, beating yourself up is a bad idea. It is a bad idea. I remember I read Psycho-Cybernetics years ago. And it says every time you beat yourself up, you're chipping away at your self-image. So I was like, in that moment, I made a rule, I'm not beating myself up anymore. So I stopped beating myself up from that moment on. You know, like before I would always be like, well, why did I make this mistake? Why did I do this? You know, if you just understand, like I said yesterday, success has rules. If you just follow them, you're going to win. So just because you're not fused with your goal in this moment doesn't mean if you did repetition for 30 days, like if she does repetition for 30 days, in 30 days I ask her the same question, it'll be automatic. It's just we haven't accepted it on a subconscious level. Well, how do you accept it on a subconscious level? You decide there's no way in the world I'm not going to do it. And you're not attached to April 1st. April 1st is right now. You got to live it like right now. Right now, I'm already achieving X. You don't wait till out in the future because you create the future in this present moment. So when you look, Carlos's goal is $1 million a month. So if he's going to do it the right way, I'm already earning $1 million a month. How does it feel? How does it feel? And he gets into the emotional state already, and let's say his goal was April 1st. We bring April 1st into today, like today he's already earning $1 million. Like, what does it feel like? Who's celebrating you? Okay, who's celebrating you? Like, it's so simple to visualize. You just watch you cheering a glass with somebody important to you, and they're congratulating you. That's all you have to do. So we've got to start. The creation is already finished. Your goal is already here. So Carlos's $1 million a month is already here. So he's got to understand that. Now his job is to get to the frequency of where that is, right? Now, you have to walk into it. You got to speak like that person. You got to walk like that person. You got to talk like that person. You've got to create the behaviors like that person. That's the only way you walk into your dream. That is the only way. Now, we've got to understand, and I teach this to people all the time about their higher faculties, but they never practice it. But today, you guys are going to practice it, okay? You're going to commit to yourself every 30 days, you're going to practice one of them. Now, I want you to look at your current results. They're telling you a story. Then I want you to look at your goal. I want you to think of your goal just like you do your current results. You know how automatically you accept your current results? I could say, hey, you know, Yasir, what did you do? Yesterday he told me, he's like, right now, Arash, I'm getting paid from my business $10,000 a month. But his goal is 100, right? So he's got to have the same attitude as he does towards 10,000 a month, like it's 100,000 a month. So we have to be delusional in the beginning, okay? We've got to brainwash ourselves. So the only way you could do this is with your higher faculties. Now, our imagination is our most powerful faculty. So when you start seeing yourself with what you want, even though it's not here physically, now you're bringing it into life. Now you're giving it all this power and energy. But we have 6 higher faculties. Our perception. Perception is what changed my discipline and attitude. I started bulletproofing everything in my favor. What was I using? Perception. Our will, we already talked about. It's holding your goal on the screen of your mind without any distraction. So you refuse to let anything that you don't want enter your mind. Your imagination is the greatest tool you have. Whatever you put in there, you're going to get. Imagination is what creates action. Then you have your memory. Your memory, you only want to focus on positive memories. You want to constantly activate your success mechanism with memory. Then you look at your intuition. It's your sixth sense. You don't know why you know. You just know and you trust it and go out. And then you have your reasoning. Your reasoning is your ability to think. But I want you all to look at your goal right now. You guys are already strong at one or two of these. Okay? I don't want you to work on those. Which area does your goal demand you to get stronger? That's the one I want you to work on for the next 30 days. Okay? Work on it for the next 30 days. Jill, which one would it be for you?
I'm going to say my will.
Holding one idea. Okay, good. Maggie, what about you?
I would say my imagination.
Imagination? So we're going to work with a bigger idea. If you want to work with a bigger idea, it's always imagination. Always. Okay? Like, you got to understand that. Like, if you doubt yourself, we've got to build your intuition. We got to build your intuition up. Okay? Because now you're connecting to the spiritual side of your personality. If your thinking is very inconsistent, we work on reasoning. You know, so if you're always beating yourself up, you're undisciplined, we work on perception. So I want you just to look at you and be like, oh, this would be me, right? If you want to get a better attitude, perception. You bulletproof everything in your favor, okay? So, go ahead.
So I chose perception before you said that, but I was thinking more like my perception, because imagination I use all the time. I use,
Everyone does.
yeah, I use a lot of those. But I felt perception for me was I'm not accepting the reality of what I want to see.
Yeah, that would be reasoning.
Okay.
It's your ability to think.
Okay.
Accepting and rejecting is with thinking, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, Wayne Dyer, I think, said it the best with perception. He said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at will change. So that would be perception, right? You know, everyone has their own perception of something. Like, all of you guys are hearing me differently. You're not hearing me as I'm speaking. You're hearing me as your program accepts it. That's why you'll hear me a second time teaching something similar. You're like, oh my God, I got it so much deeper this time. You may have said it before, but I got it. It's because your awareness is at a different state. It's like when you read a book. If you read a book multiple times, it's like you come back to a book and you're like, God, it's like I'm reading it for the first time, right?
I think that's why I chose perception, because I need to perceive my employment status of people who aren't feeling the shifts at my store, and my perception of, oh, buyers come but they fall.
Yeah, so you got to look, yeah, I'm fine with that. But like perception, we talked about in leadership yesterday. It's holding the image of who they can be, not how they are. It's like selling. If you're not using perception, you're not selling well, right? If you're not using imagination, you're not selling well either, right? So when you're selling anything, you already see them with the good you have to offer them. That's perception, right? So the beautiful part of all these faculties, when you're working on one, you're working on the other. There's like a secondary faculty you're working on